Vista Mayor John Franklin is the latest member to be removed after being voted off the SANDAG board. Franklin says this is all tied back to his opposition of the proposed mileage tax, and he joins us now to share his perspective. Mayor Franklin, so good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Teresa.
What happened nearly a week and a half ago?
Yeah, so this is, I'm the fourth mayor to be removed from SANDAG despite having been recently elected by a majority of the voters in my city. And it really is not just about the mileage tax. I mean, that's the focal point, but it's really about 165 or 173 or however many billions of dollars it is now, regional transportation plan. You know what's funny is the original number of 165 billion is exactly $50,000 for every man, woman, and child in San Diego County. You kind of wonder where they came up with that number. But this is about a long-term regional battle over how our transportation dollars are going to be spent, and giant amounts of new taxes that won't just affect us, but our children and our grandchildren. That's how many years of taxes we're talking about, 40 years at least of new taxes. The Transnet taxes started in '87, will run for 61 years. Voters were promised transportation priorities. They were promised improvements to 78 Highway, to 52 Highway, 67 Highway. We were promised we'd get rid of the stoplight at I-5 and 78, and that we'd have a functional interchange at 15 and 78. Those things have never happened. Voters were promised something. They went to the polls, they approved a tax by 2/3 vote, and then they were swindled. And a lot of them don't realize that SANDAG has the ability to redirect and change the priorities within the regional plan and within the Transnet program. And recently we were able to vote down, which is why it's so important to have tax fighters like me and others on the SANDAG board. We were able to vote down a plan to steal more money from highway improvements. You know, only 2.5% of the people in our county rely on transit. And as somebody who relied on transit for 3 years of my life because I couldn't afford a car, I believe strongly in transit as a social safety net. I believe in the Youth Opportunity Pass. I believe that we should be providing free transit for young people to get their first job, to get to high school, wherever they need to go. But I also realize that it's a very small percentage, and that, you know, I like to tell people Manhattan Island and Vista are the same size. They're both 20 square miles. But Manhattan Island has 30,000 people per square mile. Vista has 3,000. The geography is not the same here. And the long-term regional plan to spend tens of thousands of dollars, $50,000 per man, woman, and child here. I mean, we literally could buy a brand new Tesla, pay for the charger, install it, pay your SDG&E bill, and every 3 years buy a new Tesla for every single person that relies on public transit now. So this long-term vision, this is what this is about. It's, you know, and I heard Supervisor Vargas talk about that they're going to tell Hassan Akrada for the fourth time to take the road user charge out of the regional plan. Do you know if they wanted to, they could have a vote tomorrow to actually just remove it instead of instructing staff to take it out? So every time the public pressure mounts, and I had more than 1,000 people participate in a survey. I sent an email to 30,000 people in Vista. 1,000 of them sent me an email back, and 800 of them, which is 80%, said, we do not want the road user charge, and we want our dollars focused on highway infrastructure. So that's why I'm fighting to make sure that we have roads that work for the next generation.
Well, adding to what you're saying, the road user charge, which is the mileage tax, is in the plan. So what do you mean? What do you think Chair Vargas means by saying that it's not in the plan when it is?
Yeah, like I say, they just continue to tell staff, they write them a nice note and say, would you please take it out? And then they look at the camera and tell voters, now we've taken it out. But they haven't, because it's still there. And Supervisor Vargas, chair of SANDAG, admitted when she was here less than a week ago that it's still in. So why not just have a vote to remove it? Why not go ahead and get rid of it? And they talk about they're not going to include it in the 2025 plan. Well, how about the plan for 2030 when they ultimately intend? You know, this is a battle that's now 7 years away, but in political language, that's tomorrow. You know, I've been on the council for 8 years. That time went by very quickly. We're fighting about priorities that they may be 7 years away, but they're going to be here in a blink of an eye. And so we need a commitment that it's not going to be a part of the plan in 2030 and beyond, because this is really about the way, and you and I were talking about this, the way this is going to impact low-income families that really rely on their automobiles to get where they're going. This could cost more than $1,000 per working family in California. And some families will be able to absorb that cost, but most of them won't. And it's really about whether or not, as politicians, it's our job to change the behavior, to force changes to the behavior of working families, or whether or not we look and see what their needs are and we work to accommodate their needs and to work within the mode of transportation that's most convenient for them. I want families to be able to get home sooner and safer. I want mothers to be able to get, take their kids where they're going, and fathers to be able to take their kids where they're going, stop at the grocery store on the way home. The kind of economic freedom that you and I have, I want that for every family. And I hear my colleagues talking about that they're actually trying to kind of co-opt some of our language. And they say, we want people to have the freedom to have more choices than just a car. And, if you've ever taken the bus to get somewhere, it's hours. It took me a half an hour to get here this morning. It would have probably taken me 3 hours to get here on the bus. That's not freedom. People that work really hard and are trying to, enjoy the class mobility that is the American dream, they want transportation, mobility, and freedom, and that's a car.
You're making really good points, too, how it's going to impact low-income families, but also we don't have the population that utilizes public transit. Right. And SANDAG says this is a regional plan, but it's a public transit plan worth $165 billion, a 30-year plan. But you were saying that, according to SANDAG, it's 4 cents per mile, but you're saying it's a little more than 4 cents.
Yeah, so Appendix V like Victor of the 2021 regional plan, everybody can check this out, says 3.3 cents to be imposed by SANDAG, and then there's another 2 cents to be imposed by the state. So it's actually 5.3 cents. And we've heard a lot of different numbers with regard to how much this tax is going to be. And frankly, it is all conceptual. There's a huge debate over whether or not we're going to have to vote on this because it's a tax. And by the way, one of my last acts as the primary for Vista on SANDAG I'm very proud of is I was able to block a measure to focus on eliminating the 2/3 requirement for special taxes, like the kind that SANDAG would place on the ballot. I also recently stopped this week, on Tuesday, the same effort in Vista. Politicians on the left are trying to eliminate the voter protection, and you're going to get to vote on this. This is in the state constitution, but there's an ambiguity about how it's interpreted. Right now, a special tax has to be approved by 2/3 of the voters, but some want it to be approved by a simple majority. I think, and I had a colleague challenge me on this after the SANDAG meeting. He got in my face and he said, what about the rights of the 51% that vote to raise a tax? And I said, you know something? I said, pure democracies, if you really look at it, don't last very long. We have a republic, and one of the things that we do in a republic is we safeguard the rights of the minority. It is so critical for the long-term success of our government and our form of government, and for our ability to work together, that we provide some rights to the minority interest of voters and not run roughshod over them. And so I'm going to be a fighter for that. It's going to be on the ballot next year. But it's not just the road user tax. I mean, that's a huge focal point. But this is about the $165 billion. It's about the 1.5 cents of new sales taxes that they want to impose. Voters would have to approve them. But, I think back to Measure A in 2015. Remember the television commercials that they ran? They were automobiles, and the wheels of the cars were going over potholes, and the wheels were saying, ouch. Yeah. They made voters think that Measure A was about fixing our roadway, when only 14% of the funds were slated to fix our roads. 50% was going to go to bus systems, and the rest to other types of transit systems. So it's also fundamentally about honesty and integrity as elected leaders. People should know, and I reread the main tenets of the five, I call it the 5 bad moves that SANDAG has proposed. None of them are about making major improvements to our highway infrastructure. I do support using technology. I've asked my colleagues on SANDAG and on the North County Transit District Board of Directors, I've said, San Diego is a world leader in technology. Why would we not be the world leader in technology for autonomous vehicles? But I have colleagues on the other side who have insisted, and quite pointedly, that self-driving cars will never be a thing of the future. And I look at them and I say, would you like to ride in my car? Because, it keeps the lane, it slows up, speeds down. It's not a Tesla. Teslas are even more fancy than that. But I do believe that self-driving cars will provide us all an option in the future not to drive ourselves. And I think more important, for the lowest, income earners, I think it's going to give them total mobility and the ability, and we'll be able to, if we decide to as a public policy, to subsidize their access to a driverless fleet, and they'll have the same freedom to get where they're going just like you and I do.
Well, you're very passionate about this. We appreciate you being here this morning discussing SANDAG. You are not for the plan, you are for the people, and
That's right.
we're so sorry that you had to experience this recently.
Well, I'm going to continue to fight. I'm going to continue to appear and engage at SANDAG, and I'm going to continue to communicate with the voters. That's what I was elected to do.
All right, Mayor Franklin,
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you so much. So good to see you. Thank you.